Welcome to Headline Hunting. I'm your host, Joe Ferraro, and joining me once again, the second week in a row, is Mike Bond. Mike, basically what we talked about last week has come to fruition. Jose Aldo is officially out. Chad Mendes now steps in. So much to dissect with this whole scenario versus Conor McGregor. We'll start off with the news. Once the news became official, what went through your mind?
Of course, just bummed out. I was one of the people, like everyone else, really wanted to see this original fight between Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo come to fruition. So it's just disappointment. An experience we felt many times recently. It feels like this is the 28th main or co-main event that's being scheduled for the UFC this year that's being scrapped by injury or visa issues or just some sort of circumstances. So it's a feeling we're pretty familiar with at this point, but this one really hurts because everyone was really looking forward to this fight.
Are you surprised, despite the fight change, that McGregor is still the favorite and Mendes is not? I mean, based on my assessment, I think money is the favorite.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to make Mendes the favorite at this point. I think money may come back on McGregor by the time we get to fight night, but just in terms of the skill sets, we know Mendes is a very skilled wrestler, heavy top game, and he has incredible knockout power and speed with his stand-up. And McGregor, right now we just know he's a really good stand-up fighter, very technical, knockout power, all those things. So we just don't know what his skills are like on the ground against this level of competition. McGregor's been submitted in the past by fighters that are far less credentialed than Chad Mendes. So I think at this point you have to make Mendes the favorite just because of that whole wrestling dynamic. We imagine that he's going to be able to take the fight where he wants it. And if he can control McGregor on the ground, if McGregor is kind of helpless off his back, as many people are extremely interested to see if that's the case, he's going to finally answer this big wrestler question. I think you just have to have Mendes at the favorite at this point. But it's a very close fight. I don't think we're not seeing, any 8-1 underdogs, 8-1 favorites in this fight. This is a very, very close fight just from the odds.
Now, pardon the pun, pardon the analogy, but it's as if the MMA gods have stepped in here for Conor McGregor and said, well, hold on, many people said you didn't deserve this title shot despite the fact you were a fantastic promoter and did talk your way in there. He's got amazing skills, but when the MMA gods get involved, they always said, and some of the fans or the traditionalists were like, you need to earn your title shot, fight at least one guy in the top 5, top 3, and now it's official. Do you think justice is due now?
Oh, of course it is. Things always just have a way of working out, it seems. It's very funny how that goes. And yeah, this is what people have been wanting Conor McGregor to fight, or the kind of opponent they've been wanting him to fight pretty much since day one, since he got into the UFC. So, he's going to, if he wants to have that completely undisputed title, he has to win this fight and answer that wrestler question to move on to fight Jose Aldo, which is what people wanted in the first place. So things always seem to come full circle. And, if it wasn't this fight against Aldo, the original fight, if he had won, he was going to have to answer that question in his next fight, whether it was against Mendes or Frankie Edgar or just one of the very skilled grapplers in that division. So it was an inevitability that this was going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to happen this soon.
I think Conor McGregor is absolutely a genius in terms of what he said on the conference call, because he basically stated that no matter what, there's always going to be questions. The wrestler question, the fact that Chad Mendes only has 2 to 3 weeks, there's always going to be questions surrounding Conor McGregor, but he is ready for them. But the question that I have right now for you, Mike, the UFC, Zuffa, Jose Aldo, this relationship, in my opinion, is jaded. It seems that Jose Aldo, whenever he pulls out of fights, coincidentally perhaps, they are those fights that take place on American soil, or at least outside of Brazil. I believe this relationship with the Ultimate Fighting Championship is jaded. I don't think they're very happy with Jose Aldo. Every time he seems to speak, it's about money. It never makes the UFC look good, although he does have a right to say what he wants to say. And he's probably right with some of the stuff he says, but do you believe this relationship is officially jaded as of this moment because of what just happened?
It's tough to say because we obviously haven't, heard the conversations that have been going on behind the scenes. But just from what we can analyze now, it definitely seems that way. We've heard Aldo speak out about his pay, about the Reebok deal, about many things over the years during his title reign. And you're right, he has pulled out of 5 fights since he got into the UFC, and I believe his debut was in April 2011. So that's a lot of title fights to pull out of. It's coincidence or not, those fights were in Canada or the US, all the fights that he pulled out of. It's an unfortunate situation. I can understand how the UFC would be frustrated with it, but at the same time, I don't think Dana White has said so many times that injuries are just part of the sport, part of this game. Like I referenced earlier, there's been 28 main or co-main event changes so far this year for the UFC. So this isn't an unordinary circumstance. It's just unfortunate timing. It's very unfortunate this had to happen at this point for this fight, but the show must go on. It's the way it goes. And it definitely seems like there's a fracture in that relationship, no pun intended, with Aldo's rib, but it's just I don't know what you can say. It's just a situation that's very unfortunate with this timing, and I can understand frustration from the UFC side. I can understand Aldo's frustration that he has with certain issues, whether it's his pay or other situations. It does seem like a bit of a mess right now, but I think we do see these things work out in the end, and Aldo's still the champion. They have to treat him as such, and this is just the way the sport goes. Not everything's going to work out the way you want it to, but like I said earlier as well, this one definitely hurts a lot, and I can understand why both sides would be upset about this.
Well, you mentioned frustration. You mentioned the show must go on. Frankie Edgar. I mean, if there's anyone that's frustrated right now, it has to be Frankie Edgar, because where does he fit in this picture? Because Chad Mendes, good for him for saying, you know what, if I do beat Conor McGregor, I want to fight Frankie Edgar. But if he beats Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo's back in the picture. There's a trilogy built there. Now, if Conor McGregor wins, everybody wants to see that Jose Aldo fight. It seems like Frankie Edgar, he's earned this title shot once again, is back on the outside looking in.
Yeah, he is. Frankie Edgar he hasn't been able to just get this timing down for this title shot. It's a really unfortunate situation for him. He's been battling, he's been fighting everyone they put in front of him, and he absolutely deserves a shot at the belt. But right now, like you said, he is the odd man out. If Mendes wins this fight, it's going to be the Aldo trilogy. If McGregor wins, it's going to be the Aldo fight. Regardless, I'm sure Frankie Edgar, and he said in interviews that he had very high hopes he would get the winner of this fight. He just wanted it to be dominant for Aldo or for McGregor, but now that's not the fight. We're going to have to do this interim title fight. There's going to be the title unification bout down the line whenever Aldo's ready. So that means for at least this year, and who knows when Aldo's actually ready to fight, maybe into next year, that Frankie Edgar is going to have to sit on the sidelines or take another fight. There are options out there for him. I saw some people mention maybe he does the drop to 135 finally and tries to get a title shot there. There's no one really clear to fight the winner of Henan Brow and TJ Dillashaw, who fight on the Fox card in Chicago later this month. So there are options out there for him, but it is a big-time bummer for him that he's put these 4 wins together. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. He's dominated in pretty much all those fights. The Uriah Faber fight was probably the most competitive out of that stretch, and he's just looked absolutely phenomenal at 145, and he's just going to have to sit on the sidelines and wait or fight on to just further solidify that title shot. But right now, he's looking at quite a long wait if he actually wants to wait for a title shot. But I think fight for him, you got to take another fight with someone.
Unfortunately, Mike, we've only scratched the surface, but our time has run out today. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks as always, Joe.